Sometimes it's not in every book, but in most books you have your main plot and your subplot. Do you know how do you keep those two in balance, or do you not even just think about it in those terms?
And I just plunge right in, just the way I write it. Yeah, I'm looking at this questioner back here, and I think she's giving us a lot more credit than we really deserve. How do you keep this in balance? Who says we do? Yeah, because I'm always having relatively minor characters elbow forward and kind of take over, and there's something about them I have an affinity for, and it's happened actually in both of my series. In the first series, there was a character named Leisha Middleton, who she was just supposed to have a walk-on role in the first book. She was Jack's girlfriend who breaks up with him, and then it turns out there's more to her than there seems. But then when the Wizardaire came along, I thought of something for her to do there, and then by the time we got to the Dragonair, she had a fairly large role. And the same sort of thing has happened with a character named Cat Tyburn in the Seven Realms series. So because, it sounds like, do any of you outline your books ahead of time? You do? Do you? You've been forced to. Well, yeah, I wish I did. It would be a lot less like jumping off a cliff into the abyss, and there would be a lot less cleanup to be done at the end of it all, because I'm always like, well, if I'd known this was going to happen I would have really set it up on page 26. But, so I have to go back and kind of rework things. So, yeah, sometimes subplots do surface. One thing that I've been using that is really, I just started using with the third book in this series is a software program called Scrivener. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's actually, and I'm not a big believer in like you look in the writing magazines and they'll say, my storyteller writes the story for you. And I'm like, yes, okay, I could use one of those. On some days I could just go out and copy and write the story, but it really is, it allows you to organize your book and look at it in several different ways. So you can look at it as an outline, you can look at what chapters are in what point of view, you can put it up as a corkboard, and it does kind of help you see how balanced is my book, am I spending too much time on one character or another. And it's just out for the Mac now, but I just heard that they were coming out with a PC version.
You know how I was talking before about my approach to getting into college, how I was kind of organized? I'm kind of the same way when I write. I have been known to do spreadsheets and color code outlines.
I like, some of them will rub off.
For my book that came before this, which is Ice, which is it's the one with the polar bear on it, basically Beauty and the Beast meets Arctic Adventure, I had it takes place in the Arctic, which means that the sun is totally different in how it behaves. In the middle of the summer, it just rotates all around the horizon, and when you're at different latitudes, it's a different thing. So I had these enormous maps with drawings of where the sun was and what was going on, what their physical status was, and if she's walking this far, and how many miles she goes. And I had GPS readings for an entire journey. I mean, they're talking polar bears in this book, and I was worried about the GPS readings of what kind of trees were around it. But I'm actually fascinated, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I'm fascinated by the intersection of reality and fantasy. I think that's really interesting in how they contrast and compare. So I like to have my real world as real as possible. And so, I'm fairly detailed about it, but I do find once I start writing, I'll have this beautiful detailed outline. Okay, it's not that beautiful, because they often will have these bullet points that say, something cool happened here, and then continue on. And I find as I write, then sometimes it won't work. Or it'll go in a different direction, and I'll stop, or sometimes I just plow ahead and eat a lot of chocolate, and here we go. That's the key to writing, a stash of Razorbacks or something next to your desk. Excellent. I'll find that I'll do a draft, and then I'll go back and I'll re-outline. And I'll say, okay, this part worked, this part didn't. Do a new outline, and I'll print out my prior draft, and I'll open up a fresh thing and start typing again. And basically use the prior draft as my former outline, and trying to get the balance that you're talking about the plots and the subplots and the timing and the pacing. I usually do one pass-through revision that is pure pacing of when are the rise, when are the falls, is it building correctly, does it feel emotionally right in terms of where the characters are getting and, you know, where they are physically. Did they actually walk into that room when they're in that room they're in, and that kind of thing. So I am an outliner. The other thing in favor of outlining is that it makes writing less scary.
Oh, it does.
You know, you have this map, and I find if I sit down and say, today I shall work on my novel, that's totally intimidating, because a novel's a big thing. But if you sit down and say, I'm going to work on that scene, you can do that. So I find it, like, as a psychological tool, very useful.
What about when the scene goes totally where you didn't want to go?
Well, depends if I like it or not. If I like it, I will go back and I will re-outline.
Yeah, isn't that just as scary, though, as what...
Oh, terrifying. Let's stop that. What do you do? I actually had that moment in this book. You know how writers sometimes talk about, ooh, the characters took over. I always thought that that was, you know, kind of crazy. I'm like, look, you're writing the thing, make the characters go there. And then I had it happen in this book, and it freaked me out. There was this one scene, and I needed this character to stay where she was, and this other character to go, I won't give you any spoilers, so I'll be nice and vague, to go someplace else. And this other character, like, she's like, I won't do that. I could not get past the scene. I kept writing it, and I'm like, she would never leave. So I just put this other guy in a coma, and I was like,
we scared you a lot.
I use a lot of flashcards. I tape them to the wall and I move them around. If you want like a movable outline, that helps. And I think like just if I think that a scene is boring that I'm writing, like if I'm tired of writing it, that's usually a pretty good indicator of when I should switch plot lines. It's pretty basic, but yeah.
It kind of sounds almost, all of you are describing, almost reminds me of composing music in some ways. Like it's sort of, you know, when it's you're listening to your voices and your plots and trying to hear if the melodies and the harmonies are balancing out and everything else.
yeah.
One thing I want to say to you is it's interesting to me, I've got to assume you've taken some fairly heavy literary courses.
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm just writing my own.
Oh, okay. Because one of the things I've always noticed is when we get college kids in who take a lot of lit courses, is that there is this assumption that authors write with thinking about all the things that get dissected and deconstructed in books. And I mean, 35 years of talking to authors, I've never found that authors worry too much about that stuff. It's sort of other people's job to find it all later.
It's really exciting when you discover you've written a scene, though.
Yeah, I get the emails that say, Dear Mrs. Chima, I really like your book. I'm doing a book report on it, and I didn't quite get done with the book. So I'm wondering if you could tell me the theme, the major characters, the minor characters, and I need it by today. So, I mean, why not go directly to the author? Well, I don't. This boy wrote me the other day, and he was pretending to be a teacher. And he was really very good. He says, this is Mr. Tomasino, and I just read your magnificent book, The Warrior Heir, and I'm thinking of teaching it in my class, but I was a little unclear about the crisis and its resolution. And so if you could email me back today, because I'm going to a book event tomorrow, I would really appreciate it. And I wrote back and I said, well, you'll find a lot of information on my website, or alternatively, you could read the book. I haven't heard back from her.
I do find that I sometimes figure out what the book was about after I read the first draft. And I'm one of those people that I need to write it to see what I'm thinking. I do find that, like, do you guys keep journals?
I used to.
I find that to be a really useful writing tool, because it helps me see what I'm thinking about. Because I find I don't see it until it comes out my fingertips. I don't know why that is, that connection between my brain and my fingers. Until I type it, I'm like, that's what I was thinking. The other reason I use a journal is just, you know, all that babble that goes on in your head, all the things you're worrying about, I just get it out on the paper, and once I whine about it in my journal a little bit, like, oh, don't forget it, you're doing the laundry, or you put that thing in the oven, you know, like, or whatever it is, or those people are being annoying, or whatever, you just type it out in the journal, and you get it out of your system, and then you can go work. Also, the other thing that's pretty useful is to turn on music really loud, so that little editor part in your brain that's telling you, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, you can go like sing along with that. Like my little editor likes 80s music, so it's like sing along, there's all the lyrics, and then I can actually get some work done.
It is weird how you can write to music with people singing in the background.
You do sometimes find yourself typing out the lyrics, and you're like, that was very bad.
So I write with the music too. Okay.